Hello and welcome here once again, live from Munich for the 4th episode of the Transplantation Learning Journey 2018 Best Bits presented by the young professionals in transplantation. And tonight we're going to talk all about challenges, pressing challenges in donation. And I'm joined again by a co-host from the young professionals in transplantation, Claudio Musetti from Navarro.
Thank you, Gerrit.
Yes, you've been with us throughout the event here this week and we're curious to learn from you. And we are joined in this huge room, the Große Saal here in Munich, where today it's still steaming a bit from the ETCO meeting taking place. And I'm very honored to be joined by David Paredes. You're the chair of ETCO and also a chair of the meeting here today. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much, Gerrit.
And next to you is Beatriz Dominguez-Gil, and you were one of the speakers in the sessions just now, and you're also heavily involved in ETCO, right?
Yeah, right. Oh. I've been past president of ETCO.
Exactly. Now, and welcome to you too as well. If you haven't figured it out yet, the Transplantation Learning Journey Week is a week of ESOT, which brings together a lot of meetings, actually 8 different meetings of the different subcommittees and sections of ESOT. They meet here all in the same venue in Munich, back to back, and that allows for some great cross-fertilization and education taking place. We're now on day 4, and today we had the meetings of ECTA, the European Cardiothoracic Association, and ETCO. So, Claudio, you went into that ECTA meeting today. What is your highlight? What is your best bit of that meeting?
Well, yeah, thank you, Gerrit. There have been a lot of busyness. I mean, I was jumping from one meeting to the other. And I think a recurrent theme was ex vivo lung perfusion. It is a machine. We talked a lot about machines. And this machine allows to perfuse normothermically, so at the same temperature of the body, the lungs. And the outcomes are really, really good.
But ex vivo, right?
Ex vivo.
So it's on the machine.
Ex situ almost, because the donator is actually dead.
Exactly.
So and it's very interesting because, for instance, in kidney transplantation, we use machine perfusion mainly to preserve and to test, to check the viability of the organs. But it has the potential to recondition the organs that are perfused, and possibly in the near future they will be changed, like HLA silencing or repaired in some way. So I think some of those techniques are really, really helpful and might be translated pretty easily to other abdominal organs. So that was very, very interesting.
And your key learning as a nephrologist there is that the guys in lung and heart are very far with this, or what do you take away from that?
Well, no, they're really close. And I take away that we should put more effort on machine perfusion.
Okay.
And not just on the hypothermic, but there is normothermic, and there is some way in between that is probably like 15 to 20 degrees, which is the subnormothermic. And those are fields that really, really need to be expanded, because in this way we can expand probably our donor pool. And once we have expanded the donors, then we will be able to make a right match between donor and recipient. So we're pushing the limit. We will be pushing the limits with these new machines and technologies.
So better ways to test the organs, to actually regenerate the organs, do all that stuff. If we tie this to the theme of ETCO, the donation and transplantation coordination, is the machine also an opportunity to buy us some time? What did you learn about that?
Oh yeah, well, it is actually already a technique to buy some time. In kidney and liver transplantation, you can leave the organ in perfusion for hours.
Okay.
So it is also a possibility today for lungs and for heart. I mean, like in the last 3 years there was the first heart transplantation from a non-heart beating donor after circulatory death. That was something incredible, unbelievable 10 years ago. I mean...
And this specific case was also made possible by such a machine?
Yeah.
Exactly. Interesting. Now, David, as chair of the ETCO meeting here today, it was actually your second day already of your meeting. What was your personal best bit? What was your key takeaway here today?
Well, it's wonderful and in line with that you have explained, is how we are looking at a big change in the type of donor that we are confronting now. So we need to expand our criteria, and we need to open more possibilities for accepting donors. And that means not only accepting donors in the situation of brain death, but as well donors in the situation of circulatory death. And there are two different types that we have been discussing during all the day. Is circulatory death that is happening in an uncontrolled way in someone that is on the street, present a cardiac arrest, and then can evolve to a situation of death without being recovered, and we can try to save the organs and recover the organs from this person once is already declared dead under circulatory criteria, and we can try to recover those organs, even recover the organs with some techniques that allow to perfuse them even in the body to recover them, and then to do the procurement, and after extraction, to put that on the machine as you have explained, and that is a big challenge for the future to how to deal with this organ, not only the kidney, the liver, the lungs, the heart, and as well could be even for the pancreas. And then we have another DCD, another donor after circulatory, that is a control, someone in the ICU that has been for a long time, and after a long situation of severe brain damage or any other brain bad prognosis, very bad prognosis without possibility to recover, is an common decision with the family, between the ICU and the family, to decide to withdraw a life-sustaining therapeutic support because of the futility. There is no need to sustain something that will not bring.
It's clinically futile. To be
clinically
correct.
futile.
Yeah, exactly.
Clinically futile.
Yeah.
That means that in those cases, after family have been accepted this possibility, then we can offer the option that if it's suitable as being a potential donor, could be even recover the organs. And even is the idea that is in some cases we can even recover the heart from those cases, because the heart is not the main cause of the primary cause of damage of this person, because the damage is probably related with the damage on the brain, not exactly on the heart. And then this heart can be recovered, and using these machines and all these techniques that we have been discussing. This expanded criteria is a wonderful challenge for the future for us, while we are waiting for artificial organs or whatever.
Exactly.
So for us,
in the meantime, In the
meantime.
So you say a key topic here today was how can we increase the potential donor pool? Great. Now, Beatriz, before you start, let me welcome our online viewers, because I see you coming in. We're live. Even if you're watching and recorded, we can still get to your questions. But if you're now with us, joining us live, make sure you use that opportunity to use the live chat features and perhaps send in your comments or your questions. And first thing I'd like to know from you, who are you and where you're watching from? Let us know in the comments right now. Now, Beatriz, we're about to respond to that. What did you want to say?
Well, I think we are running into a period, as it has been seen today, in which the focus of transplantation for a long time has been immune suppression, post-transplant outcomes, but immune suppression. And now all
and then
the
some
focus,
immunosuppression, right? Yeah.
And all the focus now is around the donor and organ preservation and new technologies. Technologies that allows us to make the transplantation more comfortable on one hand, to be more sure on whether those organs are going to work better, to ensure more physiological conditions of preservation, and as you have said, and David was saying before, to expand criteria. Today we were discussing precisely not about ex situ, because I think it's better to talk about ex situ than about ex vivo, ex situ preservation.
Claudio mentioned
But we were discussing about in situ preservation as well.
Okay.
Basically normothermic regional perfusion as an option that is being applied, first applied in uncontrolled DCD, in Spain particularly, starting during the 80s. And now based on that experience in uncontrolled DCD, normothermic regional perfusion is also being applied to control DCD. And what we have been discussing today is that even livers, which have been always the difficult organs in DCD, are obtaining great results with normothermic regional perfusion, allowing us to increase donor age in DCD as well, as much as we have done in DBD.
To increase donor age, you say?
Donor
so
age.
all the donors become eligible
we were
because
very
of this.
selective with livers from controlled DCD donors, and we are still quite selective. But the experience that we are gaining with normothermic regional perfusion can help us to increase donor age in a safe manner. So we have the in situ approach, we have the ex situ approach, and we could even in the future combine both approaches together. And precisely today, the Papworth Hospital was presenting their experience with heart transplantation from controlled DCD donors, where they are actually combining the two approaches.
Okay.
Normothermic perfusion, so they are even able to resuscitate, in brackets, the heart in a dead body and be able to mechanically validate that heart. And afterwards, they use the excited.
And they do that to determine whether or not they continue with this potential donor?
Right, with that heart, to validate the heart.
Exactly.
And then they use the excitopreservation approach as well to metabolically assess the validity of the heart. So I would say there is a change in the focus, in the interest of transplantation now to all the preservation technology. But the fact that we are combining in situ, ex situ with different challenges, different costs, by the way, and a combination of both strategies, I think that's a fascinating topic that is going to be our focus of attention for a few years, I would say.
Yeah, very nice. And how much do you think we could or we should push the limit in expanding criteria for donation? I mean, now we have the technology we can say anybody almost can be eligible for donation after he's dead, and we can check if the retrieved organs will likely to be functioning. So we're now taking one step at a time. As you explained in Spain, that's what has happened. Do you think we're ready to make a jump?
Yeah. Would you propose to flip it around? We kind of get rid of the criteria, we harvest organs, and then check on the bench if they're good or not? Is that what you propose?
Almost.
Theoretically, I mean, it's a thought experiment. That could be the next step. Yeah, David?
Well, in fact, we know, if I may, I wouldn't say without validation, but with more, not such a sophisticated validation, we know that you can use livers in their 70s, 80s, 90s. We have in Spain livers that have turned out to be 100 years of age in the recipient, and they actually work. But of course, you always have to work with a certain level of uncertainty, and based on your own knowledge, experience, validation of clinical data, radiological data, histological data, you make a decision. So I would say that technology should help us without taking into account all the factors, unless they are very evident. They can help us make better decisions on whether to use those organs or not in a safe way. So biological age, I would say, should not be a limit. It's not a limit. It shouldn't be a limit today. And in fact,
but it is, right?
No, but in DVD, I would say, not in Spain,
really.
but except for certain organs, like the heart, for example.
Well,
but if you can use the machine,
however,
that's true. I mean, it could be for this limit or somehow organs that you would not be so securely using. It will offer you the chance of being in the safe side when you decide to go on with transplantation. So it's possibly there will be no limits or clinical limits as we know them today.
Let's explore one potential limit, because you just made in between the lines a comment about costs. Could that maybe then pushing us back in this huge scientific and clinical potential, and then say, let's get back to reality, we're not going to check all the organs on the bench? What is the dynamic there, David?
This is a thing that is very important to take into account, because the cost of the donation and transplantation will increase a lot with all this technique. But of course, these techniques are created with the intention to ameliorate the damage of the organs after the non-perfusion. When you procure the organs, there is no more oxygen, no more perfusion, and then you need to recover the organs. And then to protect them and to have a better evaluation, give better results. But the problem is that we don't only confront it with the price or the cost that this has, but as well, we need to expand other criteria. We cannot only focus on the great machine, the great ex situ preservation machine, but we also need to expand our criteria in other cases that previously we were not accepting. And in the last years, we have been increasing our idea to accept those kind of donors. That means that we need to focus not only on the end of the result, how to recover the organs that has been previously damaged or exposed to damage, and how to improve their validity and suitability, but even how to explore the number of people that can become a donor. And this is very important because we are confronting a reduction in the number of people that are dying because of cerebrovascular disease, cardiovascular disease. This is a very lack for the society that we are confronting that. But at the same time, the number of people that can evolve to a situation of brain death or a circulatory death that can be donors are in some way reducing in some way.
Exactly.
So we need to expand
While
our
at the same time, the potential waiting list becomes
It's
larger
increasing.
because transplantation is a more common, successful
it's a more common successful,
therapy.
exactly. So it's a balance. It's a communicating vessels. It's something is decreasing, the other is increasing. And then we have now more patients on the waiting list, and we need to give them answer. Then we need to expand and to accept other donors that some years before we didn't accept. For example, donors that has suffered previous cancer. In some type of cancer that have more than 5 years of previous cancer, some cancers can be accepted now. Others no, because of the risk of transmission to the recipient. As well, some cancers that are incidentally found in the donor while you are doing the procurement. Some cases of some type of renal tumors, or sometimes of papillary tumors in the thyroid, or some other tumors in the prostata, for example. Or maybe that you make an autopsy after the donation, and then it appeared tumor, and then you need to inform all the people, and we have a biovigilance system that allow us to always do a traceability of what is happening, and making contact with the donor center, all the transplant centers, and anything that happened in one of them are communicated to the others and allow us to improve. The other big change is infections. In infections, we are now confronting that we now can accept some donors with some kind of infections that can be start treated in the donor and continuous treated in the recipient. And now we are accepting even patients, for example, with previous hepatitis C that has been treated and well treated with the new treatments that we have actually in the market, that the hepatitis C is cured. And these patients can be donors for patients that are on the waiting list that are even hepatitis C virus negative, taking into account the quality of the organs, and then we can start using this kind of donors. And even the possibility to use donors that are HIV positive under control with good quality of control and without any severe disease or no resistance to the antiviral treatment, that can be considered suitable for recipients that are at the same time HIV positive under well-controlled treatment. And that can be another possibility that is expanding now. And there are many ideas that is coming from that. No?
So you say the boundaries are being pushed on all sides. I'm starting to get curious. What do you see as has the most potential impact on increasing the donor pool? Which direction do we want to push these young scientists who are probably watching? Which direction should they look?
I'm sure that the young professionals will look at the machines and the normal.
Is that true, Claudio? Is that true?
I think so.
Because it is wonderful.
It's wonderful.
It's
amazing.
amazing.
It's amazing. I've seen those lines, and they were incredible.
But I think there are other ways of expanding the donor pool or increasing organ availability, which are more related to the way we see end-of-life care. I mean, if you don't have donors, you don't have organs to check with your machines. So to me, and I think this is something that we have realized today in a very clear manner, we are also changing the paradigm of how organ donation is understood. In the past, when we talked, for example, with the critical care community or the intensive care community, we asked them, do you have to facilitate or participate in organ donation as an expression of social responsibility, because there are patients on the waiting list who otherwise will die if they don't get the organ they need, or because patients will be living in dialysis forever. But now we see organ donation in a different way, which is from the side of the person who is about to die in conditions consistent with organ donation or who has actually died. And an increasing concept is that a decision-making at the end of life should not only take into account medical issues, but also social, moral, welfare considerations. And in this context, now the critical care community is progressively accepting that donation should be part of end-of-life care, which means that when a person is going to die or has already died in conditions consistent with organ donation, whatever those circumstances are, organ donation should be presented as an option. And to me, rather than machines, that change of paradigm can really make a difference in Europe and elsewhere in the world. That can really increase organ donation opportunities. That paradigm has occurred, for example, in Spain for many years, and we are there with a very high number of donors without machines, but just because donation is being placed systematically as an option at the end of life. And to me, that's the better way of increasing organ availability.
So
but we can discuss about that. Well, they are not incompatible.
No, really not.
So first we need to, no, you're actually saying the bigger impact will become from changing the perception about donation. A question I've been asking on this, on the stage a lot then. Next one is, okay, let's say yes to that. Who should own that transition? Who is driving that and making sure that in all these hospitals this becomes the new protocol? Who should be watching and take initiative?
But changing the protocol regarding
making sure that this becomes part of end-of-life care.
I think the critical care community. It is the critical care community.
But that's no one who says that's me.
But
no,
I mean that is maybe it would be more better to say it will be a multidisciplinary team.
Yes.
I mean, it's not only a matter, as just perfectly expressed, it's not only a matter of the intensivists as well. It's the matter that all are involved, emergency services,
but
even the ambulance.
It's the hospital staff or even the emergency medical services that everybody integrates that organ and tissue donation should be something normal at the end of life. So when someone dies or is about to die, the professional in charge should have in their mentality that donation should be an option.
So my question is, how do we get this idea from this stage to all the hospitals in Italy and the Netherlands and France?
Well, I think it's a matter, we have to bring these communities together to talk about that. But I think that change in perception in the way organ donation or tissue donation is focused now is already changing, because we have an increasing number of international standards and national standards who are incorporating this notion. And I think in the upcoming years, we will be seeing, and this has been discussed today, that even the families of persons who are dying in conditions consistent with organ donation are basically requesting that this option is offered. So not just because we focus on the waiting list, because every one of us would like to be dying as a hero. Why aren't we be given that option systematically? I should be the one to decide, and if I cannot decide, I would like my relatives, persons who know me better, to decide what I would have liked. And I think that's what is going to bring organ donation to high figures. We will not be discussing DCD or DVD. Regardless of how you die, if organ donation is possible in that setting, we should be offering and facilitating that option. And of course, technology will come and will facilitate that. But that change in mentality, I think that's the big change for the future.
We need to adapt even ourselves. We need to rebuild ourselves and re-engineering permanently
Who's we? The transplantation community?
The transplantation community. We are not doing the same interviews with the families that we did 10, 15 years ago. We are not talking in the intensive care and in the emergency room, and we are not confronting the patient that have a very severe devastating brain injury or very severe cardiac damage. We are not confronting those cases in the same way that some years ago. Now we are confronting that, as Beatriz says, is a essential part. Donation is an essential part of the end of life, if not the end. It doesn't start when you say this person is declared dead.
Exactly.
It's not starting in the last moment when nothing can be done to try to
and
preserve
now let's
the
start
functionality.
thinking about.
It should be starting from the very beginning.
Interesting.
And it can help to transform in the society the thinking that donation is nothing against the society. It's even in the best interest of the society, not only for the waiting list and the recipients, but as well you can be a donor in any moment.
And for society, I think, for example, I can tell you about Spain. In Spain, there is a social pride about organ donation. When we were having the worst economical crisis of history, people said, well, at least we're good in organ donation. So I think it brings the best of society. It brings the best of society.
And can you point out why that happened in Spain? Because I realize I'm from the Netherlands, where we just switched to an opt-out, and all these people revolting. But it relates to what you say, because they said, I want to have a free choice, and they all opt out. So what is it in Spain that this is such a social...
Well, but that happened because of the change in the law
I think
recently.
so too, but let's learn from that.
What we're saying is that organ donation is of course good for persons in the waiting list. We are getting, and we were discussing this before, increasing evidence that it helps families in the process of the mourning. But I would say that it's good for the society because it's an opportunity of showing the type of people that we are. It is an effective expression of values of altruism, social responsibility, people who want to, support one another. So to me, that has a therapeutic effect on society that it goes beyond the medical value of transplantation.
Wow.
It's a little bit philosophical, maybe, but it's true. I mean, you're able to say, well, this is the kind of society that we are.
Yeah.
And in the moments that we are living, I think that's a great contribution of donation and transplantation as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing, really. And, you thought about mainly a cultural change. And so I'm not sure if the ICU professionals are those leading this kind of social and cultural change. I mean, they are the one who need to focus on the patient and then potential donor, and who have all the end-of-life care, and they need to change this paradigm to include donation in the end of care. However, in the streets, to be proud of donation is something that probably doesn't have much to do with the ICU. I mean, do you think patient association or scientific societies or charities should be somehow involved in this kind of sensibilization of the public?
Well, of course I do, but I also think that when professionals are convinced of what they are doing, they are able to transmit to the public and to the families the things more properly. So
may I rephrase, because then we can make it practical to our young transplantation professionals watching. So what can the transplantation community do to contribute to this social change, instead of looking at other? What can they do in their everyday, in the hospital, when they see the patients, when they're...
You can see that there are many countries that invest a huge amount of money. We have heard today an investment of millions of euros in promotion, in education, in publicity, in booklets, and wherever.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that donation is increasing. Mm-hmm. It means that if you give this information to the public, to patient associations, all together, I'll combine it, but when they enter to the hospital, donation happens inside the hospital for organs. And if inside the hospital, the professionals, all the professionals, nurses, physicians, surgeons, all the people is not convinced about the donation, they don't trust in the process, they cannot transmit to the family the idea, and the family will not feel comfortable. If I asking you, would you like to give me your organs? You will not have any feeling of that.
All right.
It's totally different when I approach.
Yeah.
I do apologize, but in that cases, I will approach you because there is a possibility that the wishes of the deceased person can be incorporated in a real situation of a donation, and then you can transmit a different way. If you need to have passion to be convinced, and to try to convince the other, and to try to express then the validity of the donation. And it's a matter that...
Well, I don't think you have to convince them. You have to...
No,
you have,
exactly.
You have to present them...
To be convincing.
To be transparent and really believe that what you're doing is bringing the opportunity of an individual of dying, expressing the values and wishes that have been, guiding their life until that moment. And if those professionals are convinced, I think the community will be convinced. And what can the transplant community do? I think we're already doing things. For example, in these meetings, we're having an increasing number of critical care professionals who offer their views, their concerns, that understand the other side, and we are able also to better understand end-of-life care issues. So for the future, I had the feeling in the past, and I think this is very hard to say, I had the feeling in the past that transplant professionals thought that organs grew in the trees. I don't think they were aware of what happened before the organ came. Yeah. And I think we're making a progression of having these meetings in which we have the donation side, the transplantation side, and everybody understands the value of the organ they have received to be transplanted, and they both understand the different sides of the coin. So I think we're getting better, and I think the transplant community can do this or keep doing this in the upcoming future.
And don't you think that's related to the reflection you made earlier about where the field is now? Maybe we spent 20, 30 years figuring out how to actually have good patient outcomes. That's now kind of leveled off, that learning curve. So now actually there is time to look at, so what's actually happening before this, right, Claudio?
Well, the outcomes, the machines come because of the outcomes.
Sure.
So the outcomes are still a concern, of course.
And we have to make them even better, especially for life-saving organs, rather than, for example, kidneys. However, there is now time to change. It's not just a matter of time. It's a matter of mentality. We really need to start thinking donation as something that may happen as the end of life care. Today I'm well, maybe coming back home, I have a car accident. I've pressed my will of donation, but anybody should be able to become a donor.
Exactly.
So it's just the point of view.
So, Claudio, do you agree that this is the second day we're sitting at this stage, and the key topic is about improving our patient communication? Yesterday we talked about patient-centered care. Key message was spend more time with your patients, more attention to you. And I do have a feeling that we're hitting the same theme here.
Somehow, yes.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Yeah, I know.
But probably all those technologies not always are helping. That's my point of view. Machine perfusion and those machines are easy. Information might be a little tricky. So there is some people, it's not really clear to the public that death and brain death are actually the same thing. Yeah,
we talked a lot about that in the last session.
Yeah. To some healthcare professionals, also this is not so clear. And when you look for information on Google, sometimes are really wrong.
Exactly.
And so in Italy we have the church, good thing, but our rebuttal of donation is pretty high, particularly in southern regions. And there is a whole lot of cultural things that are going on and that have changed in the last 15 years. So we are less, actually. Physicians and nurses are less, and we have more patients to deal with. So it's really a combination of things.
It's a perfect storm in your office.
It's really perfect.
Now, David, Beatriz, thank you for being with us. Now, as a final question, this is a show for young professionals in transplantation. If you could, in hindsight, give yourself 15, 20, at the start of your career, one important tip in this day and time, what would you say?
I guess that the most important message is that we need to work as a multidisciplinary team. We need to build a team and to sustain the team and together help us between and as well not only focus on the end of the story when you have the organs, focus from the very beginning, but because we need as well many people working in donation. If there are no people working in donation, we cannot offer all the possibilities for the transplantation. So we need to give answer to the society, and we need more people involved in this part. This is not the wonderful part. We are always in the back. We are always in the shadow. Doesn't mean that we do not exist. We are essential part, but we are not in the results. We are not looking by the results of the patients, but the patients are always thinking, the recipients are always thinking in the donor, and we are the bridge with the donor. So in that way, we are essential part, even if we are not under the focus or under the lights. We don't need that.
We've just learned that the donor is the hero, right? Not the transplantation professional.
But we don't need that. The heroes don't need to be presented in the news. No. We need to do our work in the perfect way, working multidisciplinary, and then the results can be perfect. And that is great for us. Exactly. That is wonderful. That we are giving the answer to the donors and as well offering the best quality of organs that we can achieve. That is the best for us.
Accept that position and be really well at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Beatriz, how is that for you? What would you have liked to have heard at the beginning of your career?
I think I would have liked to hear. I took this quote that you have to think outside the box, but I would have preferred to hear think as if there was no box. I think you have to open your mind, think big, think that every day you will find a challenge in your life and try to be just open-minded. Because, I have understood that we are able to make things happen and to change the world, but we need an open mind. And I think the last session was a good example of that.
That was a good example. And if you're, by the way, if you become curious about this last session, where we had a keynote speech of Professor Robert Truoak from the Harvard, he was director of bioethics at Harvard, right? And he talked about the definitions of death and what death actually is. If you're interested in that lecture, make sure you check out ESOT's educational platform at esottransplantlive.org. You can find that lecture and many more that have been taking place here in the Transplantation Learning Journey week. Now, Claudio, young professionals in transplantation. We've come to the end of our last broadcast. I can imagine this video is being discovered by young professionals even months later. Yeah. And they're curious, how can they get involved with the young professionals?
Well, you have to be an ESOT member. Yeah. And then on your profile, there are all the committees on board. You just need to check the YPT, means Young Professional in Transplantation.
Yeah. So then you're administratively a YPT. But how can you become part of this community?
You can be much more involved because we're now recruiting some national and local representatives because we're planning to make a network between young professionals. Mainly, if I wish to go to Paris, I don't know anybody. So you find...
Spain.
Or come to Spain.
Or to Spain. But then we find the young... Yeah.
I know a couple of people in Spain. Then there is a Google map, and then you can just click on the representative and have his and her contacts. So we'll be, in the next few weeks, we'll be hiring.
Launching that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one thing. Now, you did a YPT workshop here, which was all about innovations and entrepreneurship. Next year, around this time, we've just had the ESOT Congress in Copenhagen. YPT is getting together there. What will be happening there?
Yeah, we'll make a new workshop. It will be kind of new. It will be like a Shark Tank. So, in the UK, there's the Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
So there will be a jury of 3 seniors and 3 juniors. Probably the juniors will be selected from the ESOT Digital Award, Innovation Award.
Yeah.
and people will present their projects and ideas for startups, and then we will be judged.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sounds like a fun bit. So with that, I think we need to make a bridge to Copenhagen. David Paredes, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Gerrit.
Beatriz, Dominguez, thank you for being on the show, and thank you for watching all the way to the end. Like I've said in the previous 3 shows, if you're still watching, you must find this very interesting. Now, I can't tell you see you tomorrow, but I can tell you check out the other 3 episodes, which were about new technologies in transplantation, the use of social media for transplantation professionals, and yesterday we had a very exciting show about e-health and patient-centered care. So check that out on the ESOT YouTube page or Facebook page. And I'm looking forward to see you either online, offline, ESOT Congress, Copenhagen, anywhere, anytime soon, next time. Thank you for watching.